Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Iran is pursuing intercontinental ballistic missiles and called Tehran's refusal to discuss them a big problem. The next round of talks will focus on the nuclear program, though he stressed diplomacy remains on the table. Rubio had also described Iran a grave threat to the US and clarified that the challenge to the US is broader than uranium enrichment alone. The US has now issued fresh sanctions on Iran's shadow fleet. The development comes after US President Donald Trump laid out his plan for Iran in his State of the Union speech to Congress. It also comes ahead of the scheduled US-Iran nuclear talks. The US Treasury Department imposed new Iran-related sanctions on individuals, several entities and tankers. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned over 30 individuals and entities who Washington claims enabled illicit Iranian petroleum sales. The move targets individuals and vessels that aid Iran's ballistic missile and advanced conventional weapons production. Residents and tourists sought to resume daily life this week after cartel-linked attacks left burned-out vehicles and damaged businesses across a Mexican seaside resort city. The charred shells of cars and a trailer were visible among other wreckage despite the violence. Some visitors said they were not rushing to leave. Hotel Association President said that 48 hours after the attacks, social and economic activity was resuming in many areas. The wave of violence began on February 22nd, triggering roadblocks and vehicle fires across several states. Cuba says it thwarted gunmen trying to infiltrate from the United States as its Coast Guard opened fire at a Florida-registered speedboat near its shores, killing 4 people and wounding 6. The Interior Ministry said when a Coast Guard vessel approached the Florida-registered boat to identify the passengers, shots were fired from the boat, injuring the captain of the Cuban vessel. The injured were evacuated and received medical assistance. The Canadian federal government has said that it no longer believes in India's purported link to violent crimes in the country. This marks a sharp departure from allegations made in June 2025 when authorities from the Canadian Security Intelligence Services accused India of being one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage in Canada. The remarks reportedly come as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney begins a 9-day visit to India starting today as part of his Indo-Pacific outreach, including Australia and Japan, where he will be headed next. In India, Carney is scheduled to meet and hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it has always been legal to sell oil to the private sector in Cuba. This after the US Treasury Department said it would authorize companies seeking licenses to resell Venezuelan oil to Cuba, a move that could help ease the island's acute fuel scarcity. Venezuela's supply to Cuba has ceased since Washington took control of Venezuela's oil exports following the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. This worsened an energy crisis in the country, hitting power generation and fuel supply. Venezuela Attorney General Tariq Saab has resigned after a nearly 9-year tenure. However, he has been elected as the country's ombudsman. After that official also resigned. Saab's leadership has drawn repeated criticism from human rights groups, but Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez hailed his lifelong expertise in human rights. Rodriguez also asked the ruling party-dominated Assembly to back the interim naming of Saab as ombudsman responsible for safeguarding citizens' rights. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the war in Ukraine does not have a military solution, arguing that only negotiations can end the conflict and positioning Washington as the indispensable broker. Rubio's comments came the same day Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, following a telephone call with Trump, said Kyiv expects the next round of trilateral talks in March on a settlement to pave the way for a leaders' meeting. Meanwhile, Ukrainian negotiator is also set to meet US envoy Steve Witkoff in Geneva ahead of the talks. Israel has formally accepted the appointment of Somaliland's first ambassador to Israel months after the country officially recognized the breakaway region in the Horn of Africa. The ambassador is identified as Mohammed Haji, based on a letter sent by the foreign minister to the office of Somaliland. Haji currently serves as an advisor to President Abdullahi and was an advocate for Israel-Somaliland relations. According to a new report, a record 129 journalists and media workers were killed worldwide in 2025, more than any other year since the Committee to Protect Journalists began collecting data in 1992. It was the second consecutive annual record for press deaths worldwide, with Israel responsible for two-thirds of the global total. The Israeli military has now committed more targeted killings of the press than any other government's military on record. The vast majority of those killed were Palestinian journalists and media workers in Gaza. Thousands of people have been displaced in recent months in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting linked to the M23 rebel group spreads across parts of North and South Kivu, worsening an already dire humanitarian situation. Aid agencies say families are fleeing with few belongings, agriculture activity has been disrupted and assistance is struggling to keep pace as funding declines and insecurity limits access. Displaced families say they arrived with little more than the clothes they were wearing. Many are having to walk long distances to fetch water from an unmaintained river. Residents remain under fear of further attacks. Pope Leo will begin a 10-day visit to 4 African countries on 13th April, marking his first pastoral trip to the continent. As part of his trip, he will travel to Algeria, Cameroon, Angola and Equatorial Guinea. This is the first time that a pope will visit Algeria, whose population is mostly Muslim. The Vatican has also announced his upcoming trips to Spain and Monaco. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a historic visit to Israel. On the first day of his visit, PM Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to address Israel's parliament. In his speech, he said India stands with Israel after the October 7th Hamas attack. Following his address, PM Modi received the Knesset's highest honor, the Speaker of the Knesset Medal, for his leadership in strengthening India-Israel ties. He joined a select group of world leaders honored by both Israel and Palestine and expressed humility and gratitude on receiving the medal. Today, Prime Minister Modi is likely to visit Yad Vashem as well as meet Israeli President Isaac Herzog. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz won a pledge by China to import more high-quality goods from Germany as he visited Beijing, aiming to reset ties that have been clouded by a yawning trade deficit. On his first China visit as Chancellor, Merz told President Xi Jinping he wanted to deepen economic ties with China, Germany's largest trading partner, last year. Xi welcomed Merz's comments, who faces a tough balancing act of redefining an economic relationship that is increasingly unfavorable to German interests. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be deposed this week regarding the House Oversight Committee's probe into Jeffrey Epstein. a disgraced financier and convicted sex offender. Hillary Clinton is scheduled to testify today, followed by Bill Clinton tomorrow. According to an Axios report, while almost all mentions of Hillary Clinton in the Epstein files have to do with her 2016 presidential campaign, Bill Clinton is mentioned hundreds of times throughout the files. Law enforcement officers and vehicles were seen outside the home of Nancy Guthrie a day after her daughter, NBC Today show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, posted a video offering up to $1 million as a reward for information that leads to her recovery. There has been no sign of Nancy Guthrie since February 1st, when a doorbell video camera at the front door captured a man wearing a ski mask and a holstered gun tampering with the camera. Guthrie's disappearance has drawn intense public interest worldwide. There has been no known direct contact between any suspects and Guthrie's family or authorities. Hong Kong's Court of Appeal overturned a lower court ruling against pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai's conviction and sentence for a fraud offence. Lai was sentenced in December 2022 to 5 years and 9 months in jail after being found guilty of breaching the lease terms of his Apple Daily newspaper's headquarters by concealing the operation of a private company in the building. A Nigerian court has adjourned until March 17th a hearing for the driver accused of causing a crash that killed 2 members of British boxer Anthony Joshua's team and injured the heavyweight champion. Joshua's driver appeared at the Ogun State High Court in Sagamu, where his defense counsel said the adjournment was requested to allow the Director of Public Prosecutions more time to gather witnesses and evidence. The defense counsel expressed hope for a swift and timely resolution of the matter. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he would focus on expanding his country's nuclear arsenal, adding that prospects for improving relations with the US rested entirely on Washington's attitude. Kim also said that the Asian nation's international status has risen extraordinarily as it laid out major policy goals for the next 5 years. In the week-long 9th Congress of the ruling Workers' Party conference that wrapped with a military parade in the capital Pyongyang. Massive fire broke out in an industrial area in Srinagar's cotton factory. Fire and emergency teams with reinforcements and specialized equipment reached to douse the blaze. It was brought under control nearly after 5 hours. The operation was carried out by Fire and Emergency Services Department. No loss of life has been reported. The National Council of Educational Research and Training, or NCERT, said it will place the circulation of a new Class 8 social science textbook on strict hold. This after the Union Education Ministry directed it to do so following objections raised by the Supreme Court to a section on corruption in the judiciary. Hours after the top court registered a suo motu case, the NCERT issued a statement apologizing for the inappropriate textual material and error in judgment that it said had inadvertently crept into the chapter in question. The 3-judge bench is scheduled to hear the case today. Parisians picnicked in parks and on the banks of the river Seine, with some enjoying ice cream as a sudden winter spike in temperatures brought early springtime weather into the capital. Weather Service of France forecasts highs of 22 degrees Celsius. The summary episode comes after France grappled with nearly 40 consecutive days of rain, leading rivers in the west and southwest to overflow and submerging parts of the country in floods. Families of those killed in the devastating floods in southeastern Brazil began burying the dead. This as the death toll climbed to at least 40 in the state of Minas Gerais. All the victims found so far are in the cities about 310 kilometers north of Rio de Janeiro. Some 13 people are still missing and more than 3,000 residents have been forced to leave their homes. Researchers have discovered one of the world's smallest known dinosaurs in Argentina's Patagonia region, where a massive species once roamed 95 million years ago. The newly described fossil, nicknamed Alna, was about crow-sized and weighed approximately 0.7 kilograms. The well-preserved skeleton shows the dinosaur probably hunted small animals such as lizards, snakes, mammals, and invertebrates. Alna was a nearly fully grown 4-year-old female that lived in a desert environment. After the death, her body was quickly covered by a sand dune, accounting for the exceptional preservation that allowed researchers to conduct detailed microscopic bone studies. Asian markets surged on Thursday after strong earnings guidance from Nvidia eased concerns about AI spending and returns. Japan's Nikkei hit a record high, South Korea's Kospi jumped 2%, and the broader Asia-Pacific index gained 0.7%. Investors were reassured that big tech's demand for AI chips remains strong, calming recent volatility around the AI trade. However, US futures dipped slightly after Nvidia's initial gains faded. Meanwhile, yen remained weak as uncertainty clouds Japan's interest rate outlook. Oil prices edged higher, hovering near 7-month highs as investors weighed rising US-Iran tensions and the risk of supply disruptions. Brent traded above $71 a barrel. Markets are closely watching talks in Geneva between US envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran amid warnings from President Donald Trump over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Analysts say a prolonged crisis may disrupt Middle East supplies. Gains were capped, however, after US crude inventories surged by 16 million barrels last week. Gold prices ticked higher as a weaker US dollar and geopolitical uncertainty boosted safe haven demand. Spot gold rose 0.3%, holding near a 3-week high, while US futures slipped slightly. Investors are watching fresh US tariff details and ongoing nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran in Geneva. Markets are also pricing in 3 Federal Reserve rate cuts this year, with attention turning to upcoming US jobless claims data for policy clues. Meanwhile, silver, platinum, and palladium all posted modest gains after hitting recent highs. Tata Consultancy Services is pushing employees to use artificial intelligence to deliver work faster and more efficiently. CEO K. Krithivasan said employees should leverage AI even if it reduces revenue, focusing on speed and quality. The move comes as Indian IT companies embrace AI to automate labor-intensive tasks and boost tech capabilities. TCS believes AI will create more opportunities rather than replace jobs, encouraging staff to adapt rather than resist the technology. ByteDance's Doubao chatbot hit over 100 million daily users during China's Lunar New Year. The app surged after partnering with CCTV's Spring Festival Gala, handling 1.9 billion AI queries on February 16th. Rivals Tencent's Yuan Bao and Alibaba's Quen saw peaks of 50 million and 30 million daily users respectively, despite billion yuan promotions. According to the experts, though Bao led in visibility, Yuan Bao grew fast with cash incentives, but Quen showed strongest user retention post-holiday. Virgin Media O2 launched Europe's first satellite-to-mobile service. The service uses SpaceX's Starlink network to provide messages, WhatsApp, Google Maps and other apps on regular smartphones in areas without network coverage. Customers can access the service on Samsung devices for £3 a month, boosting UK coverage from 89% to 95%. O2 said that it enables connectivity for hiking, climbing, water sports and remote travel, making it Europe's first space-based mobile data service. Sri Lanka's hopes of making it to the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup are over. The co-hosts were knocked out following the 61-run defeat to New Zealand in Colombo. Needing to win to keep their semi-final hopes alive, Sri Lanka looked to be in control late into the New Zealand innings, having restricted them to 98 for 6 after 16 overs. However, the bowlers crumbled in the face of a late surge from Mitchell Santner. New Zealand bludgeoned 70 from the final 4 overs. A chase of 169 left the game in the balance, but Sri Lanka's top order folded, and Sri Lanka were restricted to 107 for 8. Meanwhile, New Zealand can qualify for the semis if they win their final Super 8 match against England on Friday.